Welcome to the Truth and Liberty broadcast. We believe we have a mandate to bring godly change to our nation and the world through the 7 spheres or mountains of influence. To further this cause, we give away a product every week that will empower you to get involved in changing your life and changing our world. You can register for our weekly giveaway by subscribing at truthandliberty.net. You can also subscribe to our newsletter to receive weekly updates on guests, news, and much more. This is an interactive live cast, and we welcome your questions. To ask a question during the live cast, use the comment or chat features. Now get ready to dive into this week's topics with our hosts on location in Colorado, USA.
Hello and welcome to our Monday Night Truth and Liberty live cast. Glad that you've joined us tonight. And tonight our guest is Kristan Hawkins. She is a blessing. I met her, I think it was in 2018.
That's right.
When she came here and was a guest speaker. Only had 5 minutes to talk, and she said more in 5 minutes than I've heard some people say in hours. And I was impressed. And so we've done a number of things since then, and she just happens to be here with her family camping, and so praise God, we've got her live in studio. But before we get to Kristan tonight, this is Richard Harris. He's our chief counsel, and he's the one that really makes Truth and Liberty work. And man, he's a blessing. So Richard, we need to tell them how they can get involved, and we've got some announcements.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. It's such a blessing to be here with Kristan and Andrew. It's awesome. I tell you what, it's going to be a great live cast. Before we get into that, though, let me just share with you that it's interactive, like Andrew said, and we want you to post your questions and comments, and you can do that on our website if you're watching there in the chat feature, or on Facebook if you're watching there in the comments section. We'll do our best to get to your questions later. But speaking of our website, encourage you, and I know I do this every week for you regulars, but check out our resources page. It's there for you. It's there to equip you and enable you to stand for truth in the public square. And we've got so many amazing things on there that I can't even begin to list them all. But let me just begin by saying, first, we have a link on the Stop HR 5, the Equality Act initiative by Janet Porter. If you haven't gone on there and signed up to send your postcards to the United States Senate, please do that. Andrew just announced, before we came on there, can I say this? That Janet told him we put her over 1 million postcards now. So that's just from last week's live cast. So be sure to do that. There's a link on there. This is just one of the latest things from General Jerry Boykin, who's put out a new video, the letter from retired flag officers critiquing the Biden-Harris administration's policies on the military. What a powerful thing that is. And on it goes. So check out our resources today. We're just finishing up here at Andrew Wommack Ministries, an amazing conference that we had with Bill Johnson and Randy Clark, but we've got more amazing stuff coming up, and I want to tell you about that. The Kingdom Business Summit, June 16th to the 19th, and that's going to be a great event with powerful speakers, and I'm drawing a blank on the names. I don't have it written down.
Max Lucado.
Max Lucado
or John Maxwell. That's
John Maxwell. See, we both need notes.
I want to go to this. What is this?
John Maxwell.
Excuse me, it was John Maxwell.
Boy, he's so great we can't remember his name. But no, he's one of the leading speakers in America today on leadership and other issues. A powerful man of God, and so you won't want to miss that. Stand Courageous on June 19th. This is an event where General Boykin and Tony Perkins and Larry Jackson are going to be ministering, and it's going to be awesome. It's going to be calling on men to stand up and to fulfill our God-given role in our families, in our businesses, in the culture. And guys, you don't want to miss this. And then on 4th of July, the In God We Trust performance. This is a musical that was custom written by Elizabeth and Robert Murin here at Andrew Wommack Ministries, and I tell you, it'll stir you up and fire you up, probably bring a tear to your eye. We need this reminder of who we are as Americans and who this country is. Encourage everybody to turn out for that. And then what follows is the Summer Family Bible Conference. If your family needs more fellowship with like-minded believers and needs a good dunking in the Word of God, there's nothing like Summer Family Bible. It's awesome. And on we go. This August, the Healing is Here conference. This is an awesome event. Hundreds of people get healed at this conference every year. Andrew will be ministering. I don't know who else, probably some of the regulars here at the ministry. But if you need a miracle, you need to grow in your faith or get stronger in the subject of healing, come to that conference. You'll be glad you did. Every week here on the Livecast, we give away a free product for new subscribers. Are you subscribed to Truth and Liberty? If you're not, you need to, because when you subscribe, you'll get our weekly emails that'll give you information you can use to become engaged in the culture. And last week we gave away Staying Full of God. Jennifer Fulbright, congratulations, you won that book, so you'll be getting an email on that. And this week we're giving away Andrew's book. This is one of my favorites. It's called A Better Way to Pray. You know, even today, I still spend too much time begging God. This book teaches us how to effectively pray. Do you want to know why your prayers aren't getting answered? Subscribe today, and maybe you'll get this. And even if you don't get it, you need to get it off the website, because this will change your prayer life, I promise you. So let's see, how to become a member. Truth and Liberty, we're doing what we do with the generosity of our members. And if you want to be a part, it's real easy. All you have to do is go on our website to the donate page and sign up to be a member. All it takes is a recurring contribution on your credit card of at least $5 per month, and you'll become a Truth and Liberty Coalition member, and we'll send you a free gift in the mail. Last thing tonight is, if you need prayer, you need somebody to stand with you in prayer by faith, call in at 719-635-1111, and trained, Spirit-filled, Word of God-filled prayer ministers will agree with you. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, brother.
Amen. So tonight we have Kristan Hawkins with us, and Kristan is the head of Students for Life of America, also Students for Life Action. Is that right?
That's right, yeah.
And she has been on my television program. She's an advocate for life, stands against abortion, and if I'm not incorrect, I'm reading here that you got 1,200 Students for Life chapters in all 50 states, and that's over 100,000 young people that you've mobilized.
Yeah, that's right.
That's amazing.
You know, you just say yes to God and just watch it grow. It's definitely a Holy Spirit movement.
We had you give a lot of the background when you were on my television program, but quickly, there's people that don't know anything about Students for Life, and I'd like to encourage you to be a part of it. I'm a part of it, and I contribute to what they're doing. So tell them what Students for Life is all about.
You absolutely do, and it was so meaningful after I was on your TV show last time that you personally emailed and said, I'm sending in a contribution to Students for Life, and such an honor to have you as part of our family. Students for Life is an organization that goes right where the abortion industry targets, high school and college students, and we are helping them respond to the crisis of abortion. So ministering to young people on their campus, telling them the truth about abortion, the violence of abortion, but also how do they help women who are in crisis on their campus. And young people want to do something. They've seen their brothers and sisters via ultrasound. They know that old rhetoric of Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry doesn't really add up, something's wrong, but they just don't know what to do.
I've actually heard that the younger generation is actually more pro-life than their parents.
That's right.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they may not call themselves pro-life, and that's a whole different question about what do they call themselves, and you know this generation labels, but they definitely know that there's something wrong with the violence of abortion, and that there's got to be a different way, and so that's what we're able to equip them to do.
And you know, I've seen a lot of news reels, and I get your emails and stuff, and you have students at the Capitol and on all of these issues. They're always there. You just see Students for Life everywhere.
Yeah,
awesome.
I'm a little bit of an aggressive person. Of any time there is a debate about abortion going on, whether it's a state capitol or Washington, D.C., I want young people to be there front and center, showing America that this is the pro-life generation. And those old, narratives that the abortion industry likes to weave about who pro-lifers are just simply aren't true. So anytime there is a Supreme Court case or a state legislative fight to pass a bill to restrict abortion or to save lives, we want to be there.
So you're also showing the Unplanned movie across the nation in colleges. So you're doing a lot of things. What's your website so that people can go and check it out? Because there's a lot more that you're doing.
Oh yeah, there's a lot. It's studentsforlife.org is our main website, or studentsforlifeaction.org, which is our kind of our political mobilization site.
That's awesome. So give us a little bit of background. What's happening now with the Biden administration? How have things changed? What's going on?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we worked really hard leading up into the election to mobilize Americans to vote pro-life first. And we saw young people knocking on more doors than ever before. Even some young people who weren't really fans of everything President Trump might have done, but they said, no, I have to stand up against abortion.
And I believe it worked.
Oh, I mean, we
I believe
absolutely.
that Trump was elected.
Yeah.
He just didn't get elected.
Yeah, and there's a new court case in Georgia coming out about that. Yeah. So that's something to discuss as well. But yeah, no, what we've seen with President Biden has just been a historic, it's been an unprecedented time where you've never seen a political administration move so quickly to advocate for their extremism. We saw, the first week, the reversal of the Mexico City policy, which means we're all now funding abortions with our taxpayer dollars.
And this is not only here, but international.
This is international. We immediately saw H.R. 1, H.R. 5, which Jan talked about last week, being introduced in the House and actually passed in the House. Both of those are stalled in the Senate. Javier Becerra. If you want to look at, where President Biden stands, I'm going to say Obama, but really it is Biden. It's really President Obama's third term. If you want to know where he really stands on this issue, personnel is policy. Look at who's he appointing. Yeah. Javier Becerra, has no medical background. Let me just preface with that. Okay, this is in the midst of a pandemic, which our whole lives have been upended for, has no medical background. The New York Times actually called him the abortion industry's attack dog. His only experience with medicine is suing nuns to provide abortifacient contraceptives in their healthcare plan. That's the man's only experience, and he was nominated to lead and was confirmed to lead the Department of Health and Human Services. I think that says everything you need to know about President Biden's.
How radical is Becerra? What are some of the policies he's pushing?
When he was a congressman in California, he actually voted in favor of partial birth abortion. And then recently, past couple weeks ago, said that there was no bill banning partial birth abortion. We're like, no, actually, you voted for it. It's part of the congressional record. This is somebody who he's actually went after my good friend David Daleiden, who he was the young man who went undercover in the abortion industry and showed Planned Parenthood and other abortion facility workers haggling over selling the body parts, the broken body parts.
What has happened with that? I heard that he was liable for all of this money that they see.
So the recent case, what's interesting, there's a case in California where the judge was actually involved in helping to found a Planned Parenthood in San Francisco, Judge Orrin Orrick. He actually will not recuse himself. He found David liable for harming Planned Parenthood's business. Now, in the lawsuit in California, they never said that anything David did was proved any nothing was lies. It was all truth. They just said he's harmed our business. In Texas, Planned Parenthood recently just dropped their lawsuit against the state of Texas because they don't want to have to go to court and prove, because Texas, when David's views came out, Texas said, that's it, you're not getting any state Medicaid money. Planned Parenthood students said, this is wrong. Their president went on TV and said, this is all, false information, edited videos. So they sued, but now when it got close to coming to court, they just dropped the case because they know they can't go to court and say.
It'd be bad PR for them to lose.
They can't lie like that.
And I'm sure you're aware of this, but there's dozens of cities now that have become sanctuary cities for
We were just in Lubbock, Texas, door knocking.
Is the largest one. You were involved
in that. Absolutely, we were. Anytime there's a pro-life fight, we're there. So Lubbock's exciting.
This lady's tenacious. You don't get to hear all of that just in one broadcast, but she's a blessing.
Well, thank you. Pray for us. Lubbock was interesting because we got involved. We have over 80 students for life groups in Texas. We heard about some local community leaders who said, we want to make our city a sanctuary city for the unborn. And it was the only, it's the first sanctuary city that actually has a Planned Parenthood doing abortions right within city limits. So we went, we door knocked, we did phone banking, and they won. They're victorious. And there's an amicus brief. ACLU immediately filed a lawsuit, and there was an amicus brief. I think today all the pro-life groups were signing, saying, well, wait a minute. If we can have all these other sanctuary cities for illegal immigration, then why can't we for abortion?
I tell you, the hypocrisy, the double standard in this nation is just unbelievable. And if the liberals do something wrong, it just seems to somehow or another never get brought to task. But boy, you just let a conservative even say anything that would resemble something against their deal.
Yeah, I mean, look at, this is a little off the topic, but Governor Cuomo, New York, he's still in office despite the whole stuff. Yeah, any conservative would have.
But I heard
forced
that
to
Newsom got sued by Pastor Cheon, who we've had on this program, and they won that, and he's now liable for $1.35 million.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was Liberty Counsel, the same ones that represented us.
That's right.
And they won that case, and they have to pay all the lawyers' fees.
Right.
And he's getting, he has the recall action.
Yep.
So he's in trouble.
There's good things happening. It's sometimes we see all of the bad stuff, but man, there's a lot of great things. Talk about this case that's going to the Supreme Court.
The Dobbs
now.
case.
Yeah.
So, there's a case, the Supreme Court for the first time has agreed to take up a case of a state legislature that's banned abortion before viability. So right now, viability in the United States, meaning when they think a child can survive outside the womb, is about 24 weeks. It's not actually true. One of our first interns was one of the first children who was born at 22 weeks. But right now, most states say it's 24 weeks. Mississippi, a couple years ago, passed a law that said abortions at 15 weeks have to be stopped because these are gruesome late-term abortions. The way they end the life of a child at 15 weeks and beyond is through dismemberment abortions, where you actually, and the National Abortion Federation used to be on their website, they actually described the procedure in detail because they were trying to train future abortions. They actually have to rip the limbs of the child.
And with an ultrasound, you can see the child pulling away from it. They feel pain.
That's right.
And so it's
and these abortions are actually,
totally.
you have a significantly increased risk as a mother who's undergoing an abortion to die or be harmed during the abortion. And so what the state of Mississippi argued was we have a right to protect the interests of women in this state, that we're not saying you can't have an abortion, but at 15 weeks you already know you're pregnant and it's a significant risk to your health. And so this is going to be a really interesting case because we have now, thanks be to God, President Trump's pro-life Supreme Court appointments. We were there at the court with the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. Trust me,
I saw all of that. I saw
the stories that we have. I mean,
they treated you terribly.
Oh, they did. They would take down their masks and then spit at you. We had to have, I had some of our team members who were pregnant.
Kind of defeats the purpose of wearing a mask if you're going to spit on them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And these are the people saying we have to wear masks. They were definitely not social distancing. We had to have security guards come and surround our pregnant staffers. I mean, it was unbelievable. So this is a significant case because if the court upholds the Mississippi decision, there have been dozens of cases passed, laws passed in states like Ohio that's banned, abortions at heartbeat. And anytime these laws get passed, immediately ACLU, Planned Parenthood, they come. Sorry, Richard.
No,
Lerner.
go please.
They come in and they sue the bejesus out of everybody, and it becomes a huge fight, right? And you have pro-life AGs, attorney generals in states that say, don't pass pro-life laws because then we have to defend it and then we're going to lose and we're going to spend all this money. And so it actually becomes like this strategic fight within the pro-life movement of is this prudent for us to do it? And if you talk to Janet, she would say, absolutely. It's prudent. Somebody's got to be speaking up for these babies. Right. I would 100% agree.
Janet told us that some of her biggest opposition was from the pro-life. National pro-life thing.
Yeah, the devil divides. I was praying in front of a Planned Parenthood this weekend in Denver, and my opposition wasn't from the Planned Parenthood workers. It was from other people who oppose abortion in front of the Senate.
Well, they were pro-life, but they were against you. Why did they complain? What was it?
Because I support legislation like the heartbeat bill, or I'll support legislation that bans abortions when a baby can feel pain, or I will do, and I've made this very clear, I'm against all abortions, but I will support anything that will save at least one life, right? And that makes me, to those folks, not pro-life enough. And so instead of yelling at women, though, they were yelling at me. So it was actually a good distraction technique that we were deploying. But it's sad, because if you look at right here in Colorado and the failure of Prop 115, last year, I mean, Colorado needs a strong and active pro-life community.
Colorado was one of the first states that allowed abortion up until birth. I mean, this is before Roe versus Wade.
And when Roe is reversed, abortion will still be legal here in Colorado. And so, and this was my point to these folks, was we need a strong and unified pro-life movement. We might disagree about the best way to go about it, or the most prudent way to do it, but we've got to be united in this fight.
So let me ask you about this case that's making its way to the Supreme Court with all of the Trump appointees and stuff. What are the chances of this going against Roe versus Wade?
Well, I mean, one thing, and you, Richard, probably better talk about this as the legal scholar here in the room.
Okay.
I was going to go to law school. I never got there. My dad always wonders why.
Well, you found your calling.
I think, the Lord had a plan for me. But you never really know with these conservative justices, and they tend to be conservative when they rule, where the liberal justices tend to make broad, sweeping decisions. So I don't know if this is the case that's going to completely reverse Roe versus Wade, sending the decision of abortion back to the states. I'm going to act and pray as if that is the case, and I think we all should be.
Even without Roberts, they could still come up with a majority, couldn't they?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And Roberts is, he's been called a conservative, but lately he's always voting for the liberals.
If Roberts goes with the liberals, which I would expect him to do on this, then it would still be a 5-4.
But Kavanaugh is kind of the unknown, I think, is the question there, because he kind of takes his cue from
And I
Roberts.
haven't looked at it to see who voted to take the case or not.
I know.
But the interesting thing from a legal perspective is there were 3 issues that the court could have certified, and they only certified one of them, and that issue was, does the 15-week ban violate Roe versus Wade since it is before viability? So that means they're looking at Roe head on, and so that
and accepted it, even knowing
that. So that I think is promising. I might be wrong, but that's promising to me.
It's the thought that keeps me up at night, because our mission at Students for Life is not only, it's not just building student pro-life groups on campuses, which is fantastic, and building up leaders, but it's what do we do the day Roe is reversed? And we have to have leaders in all 50 states rushing to state capitals to pass laws, because Roe being reversed doesn't abolish abortion. It just allows states to make laws and we could have several states, 10, 12 states that can move immediately to make abortion illegal. I've got a little map in my office. But we're gonna have to be ready as Christians, like, what are we all going to do? Because we've got to be at their state capitals. We're going to have women who need help, who need support, and have no idea about the 2,500 pregnancy resource centers, the nonviolent pro-life pregnancy resource centers that are out there. So that's the thing that keeps me up. I'm working as if they are reversing, because that means I've got less than a year to get going.
And this isn't the only route that we have to ending abortion, because these heartbeat bills are what now? 14 states have passed those, and like you said, the ACLU is challenging all of them. So we've got so many different things.
There's over 20 cases right now that are kind of waiting and percolating for the Supreme Court to rule on abortion. And so even with this Dobbs case, it'll be heard in the fall. The decision will come down in June. We'll be there. It's always, I'll get my summer sunburn usually. It's staying out from the Supreme Court, waiting for them to rule. But what I think we'll see, and we were talking about this earlier, is I think we'll see a wave of legislation that get introduced in state capitals come next January. Because
anticipation.
Oh yeah, a lot of lazy legislators who haven't really wanted to take on the abortion issue. They're gonna be ready. They're gonna be.
It's because they might lose, and they are so focused on keeping like they're a winner and stuff that they don't want to be on the losing side of anything, whether it's right or wrong.
Yeah, that's absolutely.
So they're going to wait until it's to their advantage.
Yeah. Like a good politician.
That's right. But that's encouraging. There's a lot of really encouraging things happening.
Yeah, and I think that's that's the message I've been trying to deliver to our folks, our Students for Life leaders across the country, is this message of hope and optimism and staying on the offense. Because if you think about Washington, D.C. right now, and I've only been there a couple times, thankfully, since January, but it's a sad, dark place right now. And if you're playing in the pro-life movement in Washington, it's 100% defense. How do we limit this? How do we, make this look bad on the TV news so the Biden administration will slow walk this or not do this? But really, we can be on the offensive. And that's what we've been doing at Students for Life, of like, we're knocking on doors in communities, because I don't need a pro-life president to tell me we need to knock on doors.
Well, Tony Perkins has been here, and he's been on our broadcast, and they're going to be here for this Staying Courageous with General Boykin. But he's now building a studio in Louisiana because it's so bad in Washington, D.C. that they still can't get out. Everything is shut down, mask and distancing, and
it's a mess.
It's hard for them to function.
I was there the night that President Trump spoke for the Republican National Committee convention at the White House. That was my first kind of like step out in the world since quarantine. And I stupidly was like, yes, I'll go to D.C. and get a hotel. And did not even think. You can tell I won't watch the news. It was like being in a third world country. There was graffiti everywhere.
Oh, wow.
You couldn't get an Uber. It was a danger. I mean, I don't know if you probably saw Senator Paul and his wife being accosted. I was in that. And it was, I was with one of our friends. She's African American. She got worse treatment than I got because she was black and she was at President Trump's speech. You couldn't get an Uber. You couldn't get a police officer. We had to walk several blocks. I mean, it was one of the scariest things. I mean, I face pro-abortion feminists all the time at the Supreme Court. That's easy compared to what we endured there. So for Tony to start a studio in Louisiana, that makes perfect sense because it's still shut down. There's still, lumber boarding up windows and just in hotels.
So are you training students, I know you are, but you're training students on how to advocate for life, right? So you probably deal with these arguments all the time that people make, like, oh, well, what about rape and incest and babies with birth defects and that kind of thing. So I'm curious about, how do you train people in those, and are there resources that like our viewers can go to get equipped in that?
Yeah, there's, it's funny, when I started speaking on college campuses a few years ago, I was nervous because in my first semester we were doing this. I was booked at like Harvard and Dartmouth and Berkeley, and I was like, these are gonna be hard questions. And I was like studying up. It doesn't matter what campus. I could be at a high school campus, I can be at a community college, I could be on a Facebook Live, or I could be at Harvard University, and you get the same 10 questions about abortion all the time. In fact, it gets kind of boring. I'm like, can somebody come up with something new? But yeah, we definitely train students in how to talk about abortion. And it's not always, as you know, and you certainly know, Pastor, it's not always what you say, it's how you say it. So a lot of the training is how do you have productive conversations? How do you get somebody to a point?
I might need to go through this.
I'm not always the best, let me just tell you.
Tact is not my strong suit.
Yeah. I am not the best converter at my organization. I'm the mobilizer, and I'm the bossy person. But we actually measure on campus the conversion rates, and I'm actually not the best converter because it is apparently there's something about my face, like you can tell what I'm thinking. You can read my face really.
You're like my wife. You can't hide your true thoughts. It just comes
right.
out. So what is the conversion rate when you confront people?
Sure. Well, on campuses, it's about 25% in person. Online right now, we're averaging about 31 to 34%.
You get better results online.
We do. But the in-person rates, I would argue, would stick longer. I mean, we know person-to-person always does better. So online, you can get a conversion, but then you have to continue to, service and send information and further development.
How do you measure that? Just curious, like someone's converted. You ask them at the end, have you changed your mind?
Yeah, well, it's hard. Human psyche, people don't like to ever admit that their mind's been changed. So we actually have a 6-point scale, and our team and students know what the scale is about where people line up on their views. And we ask them, when you start having a conversation, just put a little check mark here where you think they are. Have the conversation, and at the end, just where they're at. Because most folks, they'll come to you and they'll say that they support abortion on demand without apology. That's like, it's one of their mantras. Most people do not do that. And you can start really chipping away at where they actually stand on abortion. Online, we actually do ask them. We say, do you think Planned Parenthood is a good organization? Do you think abortion is a right? And then we do a true or false quiz. and most people get the answers wrong. And then we re-ask the question. So it's actually a lot easier online because it's more of like a survey. Take this survey about what do you know.
So I've heard that there's a majority of Americans that favor some limitations
Absolutely.
on abortion. Do you know
Vast
those stats?
majority. Yeah, the poll numbers will vary depending on who asks the question. And I think that's a really good thing.
How you ask the question.
When you, especially when you see the abortion industry's polling, they'll say, majority of Americans support Roe versus Wade. Probably. But do they know what Roe versus Wade is? No, they don't. They actually do not know what Roe versus Wade is. And in fact, we had a great media write-up in January because I polled this question. I asked 18 to 34-year-olds, do you support Roe versus Wade? 56% said yes. Roe versus Wade allows abortion in all 9 months for any reason. Do you support Roe versus Wade? 53% said no. So you see an instant flip just by using one factual statement. Yeah. And so you have to be really careful when you look at polls, and you always have to read how is the question answered. But yeah, you're in the high 80s if you ask, do people think there should be generally restrictions on abortion? Absolutely. Then that goes like
And
all
this
age
Biden
demographics.
is going completely against this. They're taking all the limitations off. Not only the Mexico policy, but they're Title X?
So Title 10, we just generated a bunch of comments into HHS about, because President Trump had instituted the Protect Life rule, which said, hey, if you sell abortions, you can't be selling contraceptives. It's kind of contradictory. You're supposed to be, doing family planning, not selling abortions. That stripped about $60 million from Planned Parenthood. So that was one of their first wish list items for Planned Parenthood. They're getting ready to reverse that. So we're going to be funding Planned Parenthood that way. We'll be funding them in federal Medicaid, so health care for people who can't afford it. We now, through National Institutes of Health, that's under Department of Health and Human Services, we will be funding research on embryos, human embryos, as well as tissue derived from aborted children.
And all of this is Biden's executive orders, or is this legislation?
A lot of this is executive order, or it's executive action through the Department of Health and Human Services. There's several bills right now in Congress so for example, the budget that's coming out this week will not include the Hyde Amendment. So it'll be like the first budget since like 1976 that doesn't have the Hyde Amendment. Even Barack Obama, when he was president, said he was for the Hyde Amendment. So the Hyde Amendment says that federal tax dollars, can't be used to fund abortions in Medicaid, except in cases of rape, incest, or life of the mother. And it doesn't prohibit states from funding abortions, so like Colorado, California, Illinois, they fund abortions with state Medicaid, but it prohibited federal taxpayer dollars. We believe in the pro-life movement. Social scientists have done the work that about 2 million children have been spared abortion because it wasn't paid for by taxpayer dollars.
Man, that's significant.
So it is a huge thing.
And the abortion rates are going down.
They absolutely are going down. The left is using, the political left talking point is that this is unfair because rich white women can have abortion, so this is racist. The Hyde Amendment is racist against poor black women, and that they have to have government subsidized
And another
abortions.
thing, when you were on my TV program, I thought this was significant and made an impact on me, is that Planned Parenthood will say, but women are going to be without the things that they need for pregnancy. Contrast the number of pregnancy centers versus Planned Parenthood. What percentage of Planned Parenthood actually goes to anything except abortion?
Well, one stat that they really hate to admit, that if you look in their own annual report, and you know math, you can figure it out yourself, 96% of pregnant women who walk into Planned Parenthood doors will get an abortion. 96%.
And so they use some other things like a pregnancy test and stuff, and they say that this is a function, but it's all just a funnel to get.
And the way they always say, oh, abortion's only 3% of our services. It's about 11 to 12%. And the way they can get down to 3% is they give multiple services at any appointment. So if a woman goes in and seeks an abortion, she's getting like 12 services at one appointment. So you'll notice when you look in their annual report, they'll do a number of services. So like 12 months of birth control is 12 services.
So they give her a prescription for the pill. and that's 12 services.
And then she's getting an abortion. Maybe they'll do a pap smear. They don't do it a lot. So that could be 15 services.
Exam.
So it lowers your rate, right? So yes, she's going in for abortion, but she's getting these other services. So Planned Parenthood is extremely deceptive in the statistics. Even like, I think the Washington Post gave them Pinocchios for saying that 3% of their services. But the fact is, and we hear this a lot from Christians who don't like abortion, but say, well, I want women to have help. The reality is that there's over 2,500 pro-life, non-violent pregnancy help centers. There's over 8,000 FQHCs out there. These are called federally qualified health centers. They're already funded by the government. They do every single thing that Planned Parenthood does, minus abortions, plus a whole host of other services for men and children. And if you go to a federally qualified health center, I actually go to one of them because they're located in urban or rural neighborhoods, and I live in a rural neighborhood. These are centers where if they don't offer a specialty that you need, they actually are legally mandated to make sure they get you to a center that provides it. If every Planned Parenthood in America would shut down tomorrow, every federally qualified health center would only need to see 2 more patients a week because they already see over 21 million men, women, and children. Planned Parenthood sees around 2 million.
Wow.
So they make this like argument in the public square how they're this necessary service and that all these women have to go to them. That's not.
So adding the pregnancy centers with this, what do you call it?
Federally qualified health centers.
Adding that together, that's over 10,000 of those things. And how many Planned Parenthoods are there?
Fewer than 600. There's fewer than 600.
And so this whole thing about we've got to supply these needs for women, it's all a lie.
It absolutely is. And I get so sick of that talking point of, well, if you're so pro-life, why don't you care about women and their children? I'm like, haven't you ever met one of us before? Like, let me tell you what it is that we do.
We're just about to get Kristan whacked.
Yeah. Sorry, it's so frustrating. I was knocking on doors in urban Denver this weekend. I heard a lot, and I was literally holding a palm card of all the resources in the community, and that people were trying to tell me this. That you don't. I'm like, I'm the one knocking on your door on a Saturday afternoon to tell you about all the resources. I actually think, and especially as we think about this Dobbs case, and if Roe is reversed and when it's going to be reversed, I actually think this is the biggest challenge that we face as a pro-life movement, is doing a better job of marketing who we are and the resources we have. Because I believe that if Roe is reversed, we have the resources in place to serve her. I mean, you go into these pregnancy centers and you've started them, Andrew. Like, you walk in as a pregnant woman, you say, I need help. Those women at the center will literally do anything to help you. And they will surround you.
They are not judgmental, they are not condemning, they're loving.
They live for this. They live for women coming into their center.
I didn't start this center in Boulder, but one of the ladies who got healed from cancer, she had 3 or 4 abortions, and she used it as birth control. And after she got healed of cancer, she moved in 2 doors down from the #1 abortion provider in the nation and started a pregnancy center right there.
I love it.
She's doing a great job.
I love it.
Praise God, that's awesome.
I love
So one last question before we turn to the people. You were mentioning that on campus, 1-to-1, you get 25% conversion rate. On the phone, you get 31. Now that surprises me. Oh, it's online.
Yeah.
I was going to say, because, man, I get these calls, and the moment, I pick up and say hello, and if nobody answers right away, I hang up. And
No, you should stay on the phone. That's a good evangelization opportunity.
Well,
just saying,
I just get put out with them. They start talking and don't give me a chance. So I thought you were talking about on the phone, but you're talking about online.
Young people don't answer the phone. I barely answer the phone. If you want to get a hold of me, text me.
Well, that's what surprised me.
My kids don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
People will call me and I'll text them back, what did you want? And they're like, just call me. I'm like, no. Just text me back. What is it that you need?
So it's online that you get this 31%.
Online it's easier because you have a bigger audience and we can specifically target abortion supporting young people. Where on campus we might have we have a lot of people who kind of agree with us. So it's a little bit, and sometimes a lot of times abortion supporters, they're going to be more likely to take a survey, an anonymous survey, versus walking up to somebody and say, I think you're absolutely wrong. Now, I met a lot of people in Denver this weekend who were totally fine with telling me that I was absolutely wrong, and so many gracious and loving words. But most people don't like to do that.
You got to have some thick skin.
You sure
do what
do.
you do.
Oh, you know, it's.
I get criticism, but it's usually through the mail or something like that. And I have a whole slew of people that stand in between me and those things, and they sort through them. So I don't have to listen.
You know, God's blessed me with like this very competitive spirit, and so I think that's what gives me like this, you know, determination to keep going forward. But it doesn't really bother me with the things they say or their threats, or, you know, when they've called and threatened to kill me or whatever. What actually bothers me the most, and it's something that you brought up about Janet Porter last week, is the criticism from within your friends and your pro-life movement. I think that hurts.
You can understand
the
people
most.
that don't know the Lord
Absolutely.
and don't have any morals,
Yeah.
but to see people that basically agree with you that still turn on you.
Yeah. It's hard because you have sympathy, and I like this one gentleman I was thinking about Saturday. I mean, once he found out we were pro-life, just crumpled up my literature, threw it on the ground, forced me to pick it up, started screaming at me, cursing at me, chased me off his lawn, then came back out with a camera, chased me down the street. I mean, didn't really chase me, I wasn't going where I threatened that I was going to come back and protest his house later. But I had like sympathy for him, because obviously this is a man who's been hurt by abortion, and there's been something, and it came out after about 10 minutes of screaming at me. It came out, his abortion story, and so you have sympathy, because you know, like, to make a fool out of yourself, to act this way, there's some deep hurt going on.
It's like if you throw a rock into a pack of dogs, the one that yelps the loudest got hit.
Yeah.
So
That's
the
right.
people who protest the loudest are
Yep.
people that have had something.
And that's how we train our students, of when you're on campus or if you're at the Supreme Court, and if someone gets in your face, gets aggressive, gets mean, you have to realize this is you're dealing with a wounded person. So we have to be very careful in our approach to them.
Well, we need to take some questions,
Yeah.
but man, we could just turn
Wow.
Kristan loose. I
That's
think.
awesome.
A little passionate about it.
Yeah.
Right before we take this question, put up her website again, because there's so much more that they're doing that we weren't able to cover, and so we need to make sure that you have access to that website.
Yeah, so this is a very special website that isn't really public for a lot of folks. So I said it's not a sexy website. It's not like very pretty, but this is Students for Life HQ. This is our training portal. It's a free training portal. Pro-lifers of any ages can go to it, but we have this special campaign called Pro-Life Future that's going on. This is the campaign I mentioned in Denver. You can go to this site, sign up, find the city near you. We're going to train you, and it's an incredible campaign that it's one of those things where you have this idea and you kind of put it in action, and then you realize the Holy Spirit had completely different plans, and it's going to make it larger and better than you've ever envisioned. That's why our Pro-Life Future.
So since
campaign
you
is.
have organizations in all 50 states, wherever they're watching from, they can protect.
Absolutely.
And I guess we
Absolutely.
got a lot of people watching from overseas. Do you have things overseas?
We do. We have a coalition of Students for Life and other international pro-life ministries we like to work with overseas. In fact, some of our fellows are in Uganda right now. They're doing a training for pro-life students in Africa.
So could they find that information?
Yeah, if you
on
go
your
to
website?
studentsforlife.org, you can sign up, and we'll definitely get you connected. Or you can always email us. You can email me at Kristan@studentsforlife.org. You just have to know how to spell my name, which is the trick. So it's Kristan @studentsforlife.org.
Okay. Richard, got some questions?
Here's my favorite one so far. This is from Kid on Chat. I'm a homeschooled 14-year-old. Can I join a group near me? And if so, what do your groups do?
Absolutely. We love high school groups, especially homeschool groups, because homeschoolers, you have the ability, my kids are homeschooled, so I'm a little biased, but you have the ability to do so much more than kids who are in public school 8 hours a day. So go to studentsforlife.org, sign up, make sure you put high school. Also, no matter what state, Kid on Chat, you live in, if you can email your state regional coordinator. So just type in your state name, so Florida, @studentsforlife.org, and you'll instantly be connected with one of our Students for Life leaders in your state, whose sole job is to help you start a pro-life group. And what you can do in your community is endless. You can join our Pro-Life Future campaign, help us knock on doors to educate folks in your community about the pregnancy resource centers, about the violence happening inside the Planned Parenthoods. You can join us at Christian music festivals. So we had 2 vans that broke, so we're doing this huge fundraising campaign for these vans. But we're going across the country, all these Christian music festivals this summer, educating young Christians, getting them involved, mobilizing them. We can help you plan events in churches with other church youth groups, because honestly, as you know, this is a church problem.
I was going to say, if you're going to a Christian music festival, you would think that those kids would already be pro-life. What are the percentages? Do you have that?
We have a lot of folks. I would say it's gotten better than when we first started this about 15 years ago. It was a lot. We had a lot more debates back then. We still spend a lot of our time debating, and the most hostile interactions are with the adults, the youth pastors, the parents that are there. We'll have a lot of young people who will generally support the pro-life movement, but have never really thought about abortion. They don't really know what abortion is. They don't know how to get involved. Or they're I don't like abortion, but I don't want to be judging a woman. And so that's actually the biggest challenge that we have. We call that kind of the mushy middle audience. And so that's why we're there. We're really trying to challenge the young people there to take a stand and to show them that they know the truth and they've been called.
Do you have any idea what percentage at a Christian concert would be that mushy middle, non-committed to pro-life?
Over 50%, I would say.
Really? That's terrible.
It's gotten better, though. It has gotten better, but and I would say the adults, the older folks, are the hardest. So they're the ones that we end up debating the most. But it's a lot of mushy, because a lot of folks, especially younger people, if they've never met the pro-life movement, they only know about the pro-life movement what they've heard on CNN.
Well, your own testimony is that you were in the mushy middle, I guess, at one time.
You remember that?
I remember, you talking about that, and so you kind of got recruited into this.
Yeah,
But you started out that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I grew up in a solid Christian home. I knew abortion was supposed to be bad, but I didn't really know what abortion was. I didn't know the violence that happens. I didn't know how the abortion industry preys upon women. And I always had those questions, right? Like, well, what if I was raped? What if my sister was raped? What if my friend was raped and I couldn't finish high school and I'd be forced to carry my rapist child to term? And all these things that you hear from the abortion industry. And so what we found, we just finished this research study. We were actually just started it when I was out here and we filmed last time. And it was interesting for so many women, they see abortion as like a parachute, where even if they call themselves pro-choice, they're only really in favor of a woman having one abortion. And if you ask them, well, what about a woman who has 2 abortions? The favorability, the tolerability of that dramatically drops. And it's like almost it's like this parachute in the back of my mind of, well, I don't like abortion. I know it's supposed to be wrong, but I need this like safety net there. And every woman should have.
Everybody gets a mulligan.
Everyone gets one, just gets one.
It's a mulligan.
Yeah, there you go.
And some people look at it as, but I wouldn't have the ability to raise them properly. I don't have the money, and so it would hurt the child. So let's just kill it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like killing it wouldn't hurt the child.
Yes, yeah.
Those arguments are so weak.
I hear them all the time.
Isn't that the bottom line? This is a living human being who has the right to live.
And the question I always ask students is, no matter what the argument, isn't there something less extreme we can do
Absolutely.
to help her, to support the child, than to end his or her life? Whether it's talking about adverse diagnosis or if you're talking about a woman living below the poverty line, there has to be some. I mean, it is extremism to say that we must go in and dismember another human being.
Right.
Just because they're disabled or inconvenient.
And nearly every one of these pregnancy centers has all of the things to help you through the pregnancy, and then many will refer you to abortion agencies. Adoption. Excuse me, not abortion. Adoption agencies and all this. So there's just really no reason for this other than that you don't want to face the shame and the accountability. But I'm sure, Kristan, you could give more details than I could. But these women that I've dealt with through the pregnancy centers we've started, it does not end the guilt. It increases. And they live with this, and it does tremendous emotional damage.
It never goes away. And I think it's just that that's how the abortion industry sells it, as it's a quick fix. And that if you have regret later on, it's because you met some pro-lifer that's guilting you into it. It's giving you shame, but it's innate, right? As human beings, we know. As moms, we know what's inside of us is a living whole.
You have to be reprobate, really, and have your conscience seared with hot iron to keep from feeling guilt over that. The people that I've dealt with, we have a post-abortion counseling education, PACE is what we call it, and we deal with women all the time, and I mean, they are devastated by it decades later.
Yeah, decades.
Well,
amazing.
we need to take some more questions.
Well, here's one I want to make sure I give you the chance to answer. What are the immediate needs of your ministry?
Immediate needs. We need prayer. This is a spiritual battle more than I could even relay. I mean, it would be hours of just telling you how deeply wounded so many of our nation are. And what we're seeing on campuses is this epidemic of censorship, and they're trying to label Students for Life groups as hate groups simply for speaking out against the violence of abortion. So we need prayer. I need prayer for wisdom, because all day, every day, I'm on the phone making quick decisions, strategic decisions that affect the entire movement, and the decisions are making affect millions of lives. We need financial support. Go to studentsforlife.org, studentsforlifeaction.org, become a sustaining supporter of our organization. We are entirely ministry funded by supporters like Andrew, not government tax dollars. But our supporters literally determine how many people we can reach. Online, I can get a 31 to 34% conversion rate. It costs me about $4.25 to do that per person. And so, on campus, when I'm having a conversation, it's about $9 a person, young person that we talk to. And so every person we reach, it takes time, it takes money, and we're staffing up and hiring as many young people and training them as possible. But we need that support. And share our ministry on Facebook or
Let me
wherever we're
ask
at.
you, how do you do all of this? What kind of staff do you have that works directly for you?
Yeah, well, when we started, it was me. I was the janitor, executive director, fundraising director. Now today, I think we're close to about 70 full-time team members. We have a small office outside of Washington, D.C., but most of our staff doesn't work there. We're all spread out across the country, going to campuses every day. 4 days out of a week, our team is on campuses, having conversations, holding events. COVID was very interesting. We are all Zoomed out in our office of doing trainings and activism over Zoom, but we made it through, and we're back on campuses, and we're going at a breakneck pace.
Awesome.
Wow. Well, here's another question. Kristan, Orlando wants to know, are there any ways we as voters are able to do anything to sway the abortion ruling in the Supreme Court?
That's interesting. We've been talking about in the pro-life movement. So I think it's important right now for the pro-life movement and for churches and Christians across America to start talking about these painful second trimester abortions. And we need a national conversation about it. I know Justice Scalia, the late Justice Scalia, one of his opinions opined, I'm against this, but where is the moral outcry? And that's really what we need. We need to be talking about this throughout the next year. So the justices just decided to take up this case. Hearings in November. Decision will be in June. So we need to be talking about this and forcing the national conversation, posting on your Facebook, your Twitter, your Instagram, your Parler, wherever you're at, constantly talking about this case, why painful dismemberment abortion should be a ban, because they violate all fundamental principles of human rights.
Wow.
You wouldn't treat
Great
an
answer.
animal that way. You'd be put in jail if you
Absolutely.
took a cat and took its kitten away
Absolutely.
out of its womb, but for a person, you can do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, here's another one. Do you believe that those who are pro-choice are aware of the horror and pain that takes place during an abortion?
I don't actually think most of them are. There are some, but when I went undercover when I was pregnant with my first son into Planned Parenthoods, I spoke with a lot of people at the Planned Parenthood clinics who really thought what they were doing was the best for women, who really were morally convicted to be there. So I don't think they know. I mean, even Abby Johnson, the story on Planned that we show on campuses, even Abby's own conversion story. I mean, this is a woman who was running a Planned Parenthood who didn't even know what was happening in an abortion until she was asked to assist. And so they use all this vernacular, these terms like products of conception, and they actually in dismemberment abortions they number the parts of the child, so they don't ever have to refer to the cranium or the head. Did the head come out? They'll say, did number one come out? And so they use all of these tricks to try to dehumanize what they're doing. The human being and the human being that they're killing. And so I don't think they know. It was interesting this weekend when I was door knocking. I had asked all the folks that we door knocked, do you know about the pregnancy center? Nobody knew, so I started telling them. Then I asked them, do you know about the Planned Parenthood? They all knew about the Planned Parenthood down the street. And then I said, well, do you know the abortion, they do abortions after 20 weeks, after a baby can feel pain. Did you know that? No. And I remember one of our team members in St. Louis actually spoke to a Planned Parenthood supporter who instantly went online and changed his monthly donation from the Planned Parenthood to the pregnancy center that we were advertising. And so I think a lot of folks truly don't know. They hear the arguments, it sounds good to them.
Well, the way they couch everything, they say, but a woman has rights. You don't have the right to get between a woman and her doctor. And it's all about like that woman, but they don't take into account the woman that's on the inside.
That's right, that's right. And no one wants to be for taking away someone's rights.
No, but you don't have the right to kill a person. It all comes down to that child in the womb is a human being.
That's right.
And you do not have the right to do that because you were living an immoral life or because you didn't plan better or because it's a surprise or whatever. You just don't have the right to take a life.
I think that's one of the things that's hard to talk about, but fundamentally when we're talking about the right to choose abortion, it's the right to choose you over someone else.
That's right.
It's a selfish decision.
It is. And this goes to the situation of rape or incest. What do you do about that? Well, that child that was conceived didn't do anything to deserve to be killed.
Your circumstance of conception does not change your humanity.
That's right.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Well, I just wanted to tell our viewers that we now have your link to the Pro-Life Future campaign on our research center on Truth and Liberty's website. So you guys can go directly there.
Got it.
We've got a great team, don't we?
Amen.
Well, this is a really interesting question, and it's this. What does it say about Planned Parenthood that they are also aggressively promoting transgender treatment?
That they realize it's their next cash cow. So this has been happening for the past couple of years. They are now the leading vendor of transgender hormone replacement therapy. And I think this is why they've been building up alliances within the LGBTQIA community for years.
Well, I don't want to cut you off, but we noticed when we went up to the state capitol on a sex education bill that the people behind it were Planned Parenthood. And it's promoting transgender and homosexuality.
But what it is, it's promoting immorality, which leads to abortion.
Yeah.
And so any way that they can encourage immorality, Christianity and morality is the biggest obstacle to their business.
Yeah.
And I think there's a common spirit there. It's a spirit of death and fighting against the plan of God and all of that.
It absolutely is.
Yeah. Well, how about this one? We've got just a little bit of time left, but would backstreet clinics with dubious doctors, the whole coat hanger thing, become more prolific if Roe versus Wade is overturned?
No. One, Planned Parenthood already has a plan for how they're going to continue committing abortions when Roe v. Wade's reversed. They're going to call it miscarriage management. And you've already started seeing them use those terms. They'll refer women to various online sites, supplements that they can take, things that they can do to induce bleeding. And then what they'll do is they're going to tell her, just come in, we'll monitor the pregnancy, and then if a miscarriage is happening, we'll be more than happy to provide a DNC. So you'll actually see Planned Parenthood continue to commit abortions. They're just going to try to change the name. We did not have this. There's like this myth that before 1973 there was this epidemic of back alley abortions. That is simply wrong. It is simply a myth. And you had Planned Parenthood's own award-winning statistician, Christopher Tietze, they gave their highest honor to in 1974, who came out and said that less than 500 women a year were dying from illegal abortions before 1973. So this was not tens of thousands of women dying.
Plus, you gave that statistic that because of what Trump had done, there was 2 million less abortions just because the money wasn't there. And so I'm sure some people will do it however they can, but it will drastically.
Absolutely. The law is a teacher. We shouldn't derive our morality from legality because we all know there's been multiple times when our laws had it wrong. But we will make abortion illegal and we'll make it unthinkable, but you have to do both of those things because you will see, just before 1993, look at the abortion rates.
Well, Kristan, I hate to quit, but we're just about out of time.
That's fine.
We've got CTN that carries this on their network, and we thank you for doing that, and we thank all of you for watching. Again, we've got her website up there. If we don't, it'll be up there, or now it's on Truth and Liberty's website. But please go take advantage of this. They're doing a great job. I'm a part of this. I'm 100% behind it. You'll be blessed. And so thank you, Kristan, for being with us. And again, we do this every Monday night at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and we have on great guests just like Kristan, and you'll be blessed. So let somebody else know about it and make sure that you join us every Monday night, 6 p.m. for Truth and Liberty Livecast right here. God bless you. See you next week.
Join us next time for the Truth and Liberty broadcast. Find tonight's episode and related articles and links at truthandliberty.net. Truth and Liberty is viewer supported. If you'd like to help us continue our live casts, you can make a donation at truthandliberty.net